All right, welcome everybody to another episode of the Health Movement Podcast. This is episode 10, and we have a very special guest with us today. But before I introduce her, I just want to start off, as always, by saying we're not doctors. So before you begin any new fitness routines or any changes to diet or anything like that, please consult with your doctor. I'm Derek. I'm a two-sport collegiate athlete and a certified personal trainer, as well as a teacher for over 23 years.
I'm Tim. I'm a certified athletic trainer, nationally registered EMT.
And today, our special guest is Sam Koop. She's a certified personal trainer specializing in working with women pre- and postnatal, as well as into motherhood. She's also an experienced fitness competitor heading to the FMG International competition in Mexico this November. Most importantly, she's a mother of 3 wonderful kids. You can follow her on Instagram at fitness_scoops. Sam, it's awesome to have you here. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate the opportunity.
Did I do the intro okay? Did I get everything right there?
Absolutely.
Okay. All right, good. All right, we thought we'd just dive in with a couple questions here and then kind of go from there and see where it takes us.
Straight away.
All right, so in terms of who you train, you say you specialize with women pre- and postnatal, and then into motherhood. Can you tell us a little bit more about that and what got you into that?
Yes, absolutely. I didn't start my fitness journey until after I gave birth to my second. My experience with my first wasn't the best. I was very young when I found out that I was going to have her. We were not expecting her. God bless us. Blessed to be stressed. But we're not planning to have her at all. And I had a lot of postpartum depression after that. I mean, I was 21 when I found out. I was 22 when I delivered her. She's 8 now. But at the time, I say all my friends are at the bar. I'm stuck at home my senior year, finishing college, and I have a baby. And could not be more blessed now, but at the time, hit very all-time low postpartum depression. Didn't look at myself the same. I felt very unattractive. I didn't feel feminine at all. I gained about 50 pounds with her, and I was able to lose that. It's not that I wasn't skinny, because I still was, but I didn't have that athletic physique that I had before. And I didn't feel like I had that self-worth and self-love and connection that I had had prior to having a baby. And she was also a girl. She took all my hair, my skin changed, everything. She took it all. She's got gorgeous olive skin. I've never been whiter in my life than after I gave birth to her. So it was not a fun experience. But when I found out I was pregnant with my second, they're about 3 years apart roughly, I was newly pregnant. I registered for school and I said, I'm going back to school to be a personal trainer because I need to figure out how to get my body back, and I'm not going through postpartum depression again. So it was for my mental and my physical health for me that originally got me back into school. As soon as I gave birth to him, I was like 2 months postpartum. I chucked it back to downtown at the National Personal Training Institute of Chicago. I did 500 hours in 6 months, and I got my diploma.
Wow.
There. So I was there basically as a full-time job. And I wouldn't change it for a thing. I not only found myself and my confidence in a physique that I didn't even have prior to having kids, but I found a love and a passion for helping others who feel lost in that as well. Not just in pre-postnatal in general in life, but I have a passion for pre-postnatal just because that was my heart-hitting life change.
That makes sense. That completely makes sense.
And I think the big thing there is there's so many different people that go through that same exact experience that don't really, I think when you're in it, you don't feel like it's as common as it actually is, right? And that's something that is, especially with the postpartum depression, that's an area where it is very, and everybody's experience with it is different too. So I think that's
absolutely
how you pull yourself out of that is again, it's going to be different, but it's going to be you getting back to the basic things that you're talking about. That's a big springboard.
Oh, absolutely. And it's a lot more common than people lead to believe. I mean, most of my family didn't even know I was suffering through postpartum depression. I mean, you put on a face, you go through it. They give you a sheet after you give birth, and basically it's a mental evaluation, and they have you answer the questions. I passed it to my husband. I was like, you're answering me. Like, I'm not reading it. I'm not answering it. I don't care. Lie, fake it.
Lie
I'm happy.
completely.
I'm happy
Awesome.
as can be. Lie. I'm like lie because they won't let me go home with the baby if I don't. Now, obviously, I don't recommend doing that, but I couldn't even read it. I didn't want to read it, and I did not want to go through that again. So we decided to go back, and postpartum depression for everyone is very different, whether it be from the physical side, from the mental side. If you're obviously exhausted, we're sleeping next to none.
Yeah.
And I was attempting to breastfeed. That didn't go well with my first either, which made the mom guilt worse, which made the postpartum depression worse. And then you feel guilty that you're depressed because you have this beautiful baby in your arms and it's not worth
Yeah.
it. So definitely it was a life-changing event to go back to school after my second.
So how is it now? I mean, because you said you're 8 years removed from your first. Working with women now, do you start as soon as they get pregnant or when they find out, and you kind of help them through that? And then
All of the above. I've had clients who have started with me prior to their pregnancies. I've had some start with me when they were in the journey of attempting to get pregnant, and then we'd train throughout pregnancy, and then afterwards.
you're a mom, it happens.
But I have quite a few clients that I've taken through the whole entire journey and through the whole process. But my favorite, yes,
Hey, bud.
that's my lovely middle child. He's the trouble child. We love him,
Yeah, that
but
usually happens.
However, back to my pregnancy clients. My favorite is taking them through the whole process. I mean, I love growing with them. I'm watching them grow. One of my clients and I were, with my last, were actually pregnant at the same time. The gym owner was taking pictures of us with our giant bellies.
Oh,
Me
that's
training,
cool.
sure, walking around. Yeah. But the rehab side of it is definitely my favorite because I like getting their confidence back. It's hard to do that, obviously. While you're pregnant, you're watching yourself get bigger. You're going through all these changes.
Yeah.
Our bodies are just not the same. So I like working with the end aspect because I can get them back to a better spot. However, a lot of people, most people actually, recognize the after, but they don't recognize the beginning. You can prepare your body for labor and for birth and make the ending significantly easier for the quote unquote snapback if you start prior to even having the baby. Most people don't think of that. You get pregnant, you think, I'm going to get through this. You're sick, you don't want to do it. You're tired, you're exhausted, and you think about it after. But I've been through each stage myself, whereas with my first, although I was very athletic, I was not lifting the way that I'm lifting now. I was a dancer, so I was fit, but I was not the type of fit that I am now. Go through her pregnancy, I snapped back rather quickly, but went through the whole postpartum depression, and it was more of my skin changed, my hair changed. I felt unfeminine, unattractive. I wasn't as athletic. And then the second one, I decided that wasn't going to happen. But I went his entire pregnancy without working out. I didn't know how. I registered for school, but I didn't know how to go through that. So I have the experience of not working out at all through his pregnancy and only working out afterwards. And then the third one, I was at the fittest I've ever been. Went into that one, trained through the entire pregnancy, had its challenges, but trained through the whole pregnancy, came out of it, and that was the easiest one of them all. So having each experience has helped me too with my clients, and depending on what they've experienced, I can guide them down a certain path. But most neglected is that prenatal aspect. People don't realize that it is safe and it is beneficial for both you and the baby to start in advance.
I think that's the biggest thing, right? Is people being nervous about, are you going to cause damage, or are you going to, do harm to the baby? Like, those are all big things that I think, is probably one of the biggest barriers or the biggest restrictors for to do that.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely. There's so many myths around pre-postnatal training. One is that, and a lot of doctors, I'm not a doctor. My dad is. I was raised by one, but I am not a doctor. However, I am pre-postnatal specifically certified. And there are a lot of myths that we cover and the truth underneath them. A lot of doctors, especially when doctors are trained to diagnose. We are not. However, they're not trained to treat when it comes to a physical aspect, like a physical therapist or a personal trainer. And there are certain things that doctors will still say, and not that they're necessarily wrong, but they're misleading. One, for example, is that the heart rate has to stay under 140 beats per minute. That's not true. All of our heartbeats start differently. So that's myth number one. The biggest thing that we look for is, can they pass the talk test? So when they're exercising, can you hold a conversation through that workout? If you start to lose your breath and you can't hold a conversation, we are now not passing the talk test, and that's where it gets dangerous. That is how we're supposed to follow our modules, is can you pass that talk test? And then there's other myths such as exercise will make you more exhausted, when that's not true. It actually give you energy if done properly, help you through the pregnancy when you get super exhausted. And that fatigue is inevitable. However, exercise can help. Another one is that running is unsafe. That's not necessarily true either. I know many women that who's obese cleared them for marathons, and they were allowed to do that because they were preconditioned to do so beforehand. Anything you were preconditioned to do prior to pregnancy is safe to continue during pregnancy, with a few modifications along each trimester. Then it's too dangerous to lift weight. When that's not true, it's actually better for your muscle tone and your metabolism. And think about it very physical therapy based. There are certain things that we want to work the muscles and we want them to grow so that it will prepare your body more for labor and delivery, which is one of the most stressful things your body's ever going to go under. And lastly, is they say no abs, which is also not necessarily true. We want to focus on the inner abs, your inner girdle, which is going to help you through carrying that baby, supporting that baby, delivery. Those are the muscles that are help you push. So you can train abs. No, we're not going to be sitting there doing crunches in the third trimester.
Yeah.
However, there are ab exercises that are safe and effective and beneficial for both you and the baby and your recovery.
Before I forget, if people want to reach out to you that are, mothers that are starting out or wherever they are, is it at fitness_scoops? Is that the best way to do it? Or is there an email that they can reach out to you at?
Yes, you can either reach out to me through Instagram. I check my DMs constantly, or you can email me at fitnessscoop@aol.com. Or I'm sorry, it's fitnessscoops@yahoo.com.
I was going to say AOL. You're going way back with that one.
No, I actually have multiple I have multiple of the emails in case something goes wrong with the one. I have more.
Yeah, I got you. Is there an underscore under the fitness and the scoops?
No, it's just Fitness Scoop with a K, SKOOPS at AOL. Good Lord, I can't speak. Jesus.
Good thing I told you no swearing before we started there.
We said Instagram. It's at Yahoo.
At Yahoo, Fitness Scoops.
Don't mind me.
Got you. And I had another question. Oh, and this is coming from a moronic guy in his 50s who's obviously never carried a child. Did you notice after you said you worked out a lot more with your third, was it easier carrying the child itself?
Absolutely. 100%.
What would you say the noticeable differences?
So when it comes to sickness, I was sick for all of them. Like physically sick, especially with the last one. The nausea for me personally just got worse and worse and worse. However, from a physical standpoint, pain, carrying them, labor and delivery, each. The third was the easiest. I had significant amount of back pain with my second. I showed faster with my second. He popped within the first month. I actually knew I was pregnant before any of the tests came up positive. The doctors were like, no, you're not. I was like, you're wrong. I know that I am. Sure enough, I was. I knew immediately. I showed immediately. The third, I was far more conditioned, in the best shape of my life, really, that I've ever been going into that until now, but going into that one. And that pregnancy, I had significantly less back pain. I didn't need my ginormous pregnancy pillow that I needed the second pregnancy. I could not sleep without that thing, the second pregnancy for my back pain.
Pillow?
Yeah, the ginormous pillow.
Yes.
I hated it. It takes up like the whole entire bed. But the third time, I didn't really need it. My back pain was way better. And I was able to deliver him with more ease. I was up and back at work. Not that I recommend doing this, but I was up and back at work 5 days postpartum with my third.
Wow.
And I was back in the gym. I wasn't training myself, but I was back with my clients.
Yeah.
And I never would have been able to do that with the other two pregnancies. I was immobile with the other two. for way longer. Now, yes, he was my third. He probably popped out faster than the other one. However, I will say I was in significantly less pain. I was walking around. I felt like I could work out, even though we're not supposed to. I didn't. Let your body recover. That's important too. A lot of people make that mistake and just jump into it too fast. You can do more harm than good, including making the abdominal preparation worse. So I waited, but I felt good. I felt great. I could have mentally and physically probably done some exercise, but better safe than sorry to wait till your postpartum checkup.
So I've got a couple of questions. So the first one would be like, what are some, as the pregnancy progresses and as you get into the second and third trimesters, like what are some of the maybe alterations or restrictions that you would put up for?
Absolutely. General rule of thumb is that first trimester, you are safe to continue anything you were doing beforehand. You're safe to do normal ab exercises. You're safe to lie on your back. You're safe to lie on your belly. As long as you are hydrated, comfortable clothing, all the normal safety measures, you are fine. Unless for some reason, obviously, you are a high-risk pregnancy or you have other form of obstacles that might be in your way. Assuming it is a healthy pregnancy, you are healthy, baby is healthy, you are good to go doing whatever you were doing prior, and even learning new things. However, the second trimester, that is when we want to start altering and modifying some of the exercises. So for the core exercises, and this is where we really want to zone in on that inner core, pelvic floor, all those muscles that are going to assist you in carrying the baby and pushing the baby out. No lying on your back. And doctors, the OBs will tell us that all the time. But I've seen women in the gym in their third trimesters with big bellies, and they're doing dead bugs lying flat on the floor. A dead bug essentially is safe. However, lying on your back is not. And the reason being is the baby adds pressure onto your organs, your intestines, that can cut off blood flow and oxygen to the baby. So you can essentially harm the baby, and you can essentially harm yourself because that pressure is now pushing on your organs and cutting off circulation for you. Both of which not safe. So we avoid any flat lying exercises really whatsoever, and obviously lying on the belly physically. Now you can do side exercises, lying directly on your side. You can do incline. There's a whole bunch of modifications. The other one that people neglect is balance. Our equilibrium is off almost immediately during pregnancy.
Understandably.
And, yeah, not just you have something moving inside you physically, but your belly's getting bigger, your balance is off. You don't want to do any exercises that can increase your risk for falling. And even if you feel like you might have great balance, it changes. So making sure that you are safe, planted on both feet. Don't usually recommend plyometrics. Anything else on that side. We don't need you falling.
No box jumps or anything like that.
Probably not. Probably not the best idea. And lastly, one of the biggest things that people tend to neglect is we are hypermobile almost immediately from day one. That's actually a modification that should be addressed from day one. We are increased risk of injury due to relaxed joints and muscles that prepare our bodies for labor. It's a specific hormone that we release. You might not feel super hypermobile, but your joints, your muscles, tendons, ligaments are significantly looser. You're at higher risk of pulling something, injuring something, tearing something. Just listen to your body, stay safe, warm up properly, and you'll be okay. But that's definitely something to keep in the back of your mind whenever you are exercising, is that you are hypermobile and you are at higher risk for injury.
So and then you got to figure, then you're gonna ramp down intensity a little bit, then, right? Focus on a little bit more on form and technique.
Yeah, I mean, always form and technique. I will do that forever, but I'll preach about that.
Yeah.
Form first, always. However, when it comes to pregnancy, it does depend on the client. There are some clients that have been working with me prior to being pregnant that are very conditioned, and like myself going into the third pregnancy, I could lift all my same weight going through that entire pregnancy. I actually didn't get really weak until after I gave birth. But I was still doing pull-ups. I was fine. But I'm not, Olympic lifting. I'm generally speaking keeping my reps on the higher end. Not that actually you can't Olympic lift if you were conditioned to do so before. You can, as long as your OB says that you're cleared to do so. But it does depend on the client. It's very specific to that individual on whether or not something is too intense for them. And some people genetically can lift a lot of weight and some people can run a lot of miles. It just really depends on how their pregnancy is going, what they were conditioned to do prior.
Yeah, maybe modify, like, use a kettlebell, or, like try to modify a little bit, doing
Yeah,
the same
absolutely.
lifts just a little differently, right? That kind of stuff. I would assume that would be a great, and this is personally going off of, I have a good friend who actually just, I followed her Instagram journey. She just had a baby, maybe 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago. And her last post, I don't even think it was that long ago. It might've been 10 days ago. And her last post of her last workout was September 10th. You know what I mean? So and she's always somebody that kind of puts it out there, puts her fitness journey out there on her own, which is, I find super commendable, because that's something that I can't put myself out there like that. But, she kind of is posted throughout her whole, and she's a similar background to me. This is somebody that I went through athletic training school with, and it's one of those things where it's watching her do, and she puts all of her lifts out there, and watching the things that she would do. A lot of it was kettlebells. A lot of it was, she was doing a lot of dynamic movement and multi-joint movements and stuff like that, where it was, I was super impressed with the work that she was still continuing to put in at 9 months pregnant, where it was definitely very, very eye-opening for me just to see. And I know that people go through that, and you can do it safely and all those things, but even just watching someone do that was very impressive to me.
It definitely is. I love taking my clients through the experience.
I just had a quick question here. You had mentioned more so with your first, and I think a little with your second, the postpartum depression that
Yes.
hit you pretty hard. What did you do, or how did you end up getting through that on the other side for anyone going through
Hit
that?
it for a very long time. I mean, when I gave birth to my first, I was young, I was naive, which, you know what, part of me misses that. It was kind of nice. I'm not going to lie. I miss the naiveness. My anxiety with the other two were way worse than I knew what could happen. But the first time around, I hid that a lot. I didn't talk about it. I felt like a bad mom if I did. I felt like there was no way around it, that I had to suck it up. She was more important than me. And I think a lot of moms automatically jump to that conclusion. We want to be there for our babies. We want to be there for our family. We don't want to show weakness. And it's hard to admit that you need help. And I did not want to admit that I needed help. But I will say that when it comes to the end, when you're going through that, if you're experiencing any feelings of postpartum depression, whether that be from a physical aspect, looking at yourself, or that be from mental or stress and anxiety of having a new baby, some of the best things you can do are, one, focus on taking care of yourself, make time for yourself. I know it's easier said than done with a newborn baby, but even if that's passing off a feeding, taking a minute to go upstairs and take a bath, like anything to do to just have a moment to yourself, to take a mental break. Ask for help too. Like, if people don't always ask for help when they need it, and that is one of the biggest things. Ask for help, whether it be from your partner, whether it be from a professional. Communication is key. Communication with your partner is key. I mean, I would get up in the middle of the night to go and feed my baby, and I'm sitting there crying in her room. My husband's fast asleep and has no idea what's going on whatsoever. So, and then I get mad, even more mad and more depressed, because he's sleeping through the whole damn thing, and I want to kick him out of bed. I'm like, wake up, help me. And I never wanted to ask for help. So making sure that you communicate, whether that be with your partner or your parents or, grandma and grandpa, someone help you through that process is extremely important. And then adjust your expectations. We all expect it to be this beautiful, happy, go lucky experience. It's not. It's miserable. We love them, and God makes them cute for a reason, so we don't get rid of them. Like they're adorable for a reason. I'm just saying.
Oh, that's good.
So
That's good.
I think you have to make sure that you adjust your expectations. It's not going to be perfect. You're going to be exhausted. You're not going to want to do things, exercise being number one. But it just depends what's important to you. If your mental health, your physical health are important to you, you will make time for it. And a lot of my clients actually do bring their babies into the gym with me, and
Oh,
I
that's
will
good.
incorporate them into the workout. We'll strap them in one of their buggies, or I'll push them around in the stroller while they exercise. I do that too. It's fine. We make it work. Like, we do what we have to do to get those moms to their goals, because it's important for their mental and their physical health, which will make them stronger for the baby. And also your sleep. So sleep is obviously where we make all our recovery. And
Yep.
it's hard to recover as a mom when you're getting up every 2 hours
Yep.
to feed a baby. And our body just cannot process that repair if we're not sleeping. So I know the doctors always say, lay down and take a nap whenever the baby's napping. And sometimes we can't. There's stuff to do. But making as much effort as you possibly can towards prioritizing sleep and recovery is extremely important. Nutrition being part of that recovery, but prepping and making it as easy for yourself as possible would be great. And then the last one I have to say is meet other parents. I didn't do that. I was like, I got this. I'm fine. We can figure this out. But you have to meet other parents. Talk to other parents going through the same thing you are, or parents that have been through it and have the experience to help you. That's one thing that I neglected, and I think a lot of people tend to neglect. It's awkward. We don't want to go ask. We don't really want to find groups, strangers, especially during the pandemic, because my youngest was born during the pandemic, and those things really didn't exist. They weren't around. And now that things are, more back to normal, use those resources, because those really can help.
I think that's got to be awesome for them too, as they're working with you, realizing you went through it 3 times and here you are out on the other side, and you're loving what you're doing.
Definitely. And each experience is completely different. For everybody. I mean, my first, my second, my third were very, very different. And a client's first is not going to be the same as their second and their third. And you have to adjust. You have to make those modifications. But if you want it, you want that goal, you want health for you and your baby and an easier labor and delivery, it's more than possible.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing with the postpartum stuff too, it's just like any depression. Like, I think it's hard for people to recognize it, right? So
Absolutely.
when you're in it, you don't know that you're in it sometimes, and I think that's a big piece is, and where you're talking about, like, even just talking to somebody, or when you have all these follow up doctor's visits and stuff too, like, make sure that you mention those things, and
Yeah.
you need to advocate, because nobody's going to advocate for you other than you, right? So I think that's
Absolutely.
the big thing is you have to be your own advocate too, and it's hard when you're in it to realize that you're going through those kind of things, and that's for any type of depression or mental health disorder or anything like that, but specifically that's you have those follow-up visits where you need to check in and mention that too. I think is a big piece.
I think we say that a lot. Oh, sorry, go ahead. I was going to say, I think we say that a lot on here too, is generally speaking, people want to help other people. If you just ask and reach out, most people out there are going to be happy to help out and do what they can to get you through it. Either they've done it themselves, or, people are generally good people, I feel like, so they're going to want to do what they can to help you out. So yeah, I think that's huge. Talk about it, ask for help. Don't be a superhero all the time. I mean, you're already a mom. That's a superhero right there.
It
so, you can go from there. Was there anything else you wanted to cover with training mothers at this point?
The only other thing that I wanted to touch on, when we talk all the time about what's good for the moms, but how is it good for the baby? And a lot of people don't know that some of the facts behind strength training specifically when it comes to the baby, but one of which is it can reduce the amounts of glucose and fats that the mothers make available for their babies, which is beneficial for your baby cells. And the baby is less likely to be obese later in life. It decreases their chance of obesity later.
I didn't realize that.
Also, it creates a healthier, lower heart rate for mama, which helps support the baby for labor and delivery, but also helps your baby have a lower heart rate later in their life.
Yeah.
And newer research shows that there's even a connection between advanced brain function with strength training of the baby while you strength train during pregnancy. Now that is newer research. It's not proven yet. They're still looking into that. But I think it's a very interesting study to follow and see how they come up with that connection.
That would make sense. I mean, it helps to improve cognitive function. I mean, physical fitness and exercise improves cognitive function. We know that there's a correlation there anyway. So it would make sense that it would translate to your unborn baby.
Yes, absolutely. And then the last one that I wanted to touch on was stress levels. Your stress levels during labor and delivery can affect your stress levels of your baby, and sometimes those end up leading to emergency C-sections. And I know some people opt for C-sections, but most mothers don't want to go through that. And if you don't have to, if it doesn't have to be an emergency C-section, and you can reduce those chances of that extra stress on your body and the baby's body through strength training.
That definitely does make sense. I mean, we see the benefits ourselves, and especially with proper nutrition, getting enough sleep, all the things we always talk about. It makes complete sense that it would benefit the baby as well.
Yeah.
There were a couple things I was going through some of your posts, and there were a couple things that you said in them that I thought were pretty cool. And one, I think it was after, I don't remember which child it was, but you said you noticed a lot when you stopped chasing scale numbers and started chasing gym numbers.
Yeah.
Can you talk about that a little bit?
In general, I mean, male and female, but particularly really in the female world, we're very obsessed with that scale, that number. We want to be under a certain number. We have a very specific number in our mind. And back in high school, I was less than 110 pounds, and I thought that was awesome. I was like, this is phenomenal. I'm tiny as hell. Get into college, and you start seeing like the 120 creep up, and I'm like, oh my god, there's a 2. Like, there's a 2 in there. We're gaining too much weight. And then through pregnancy, and my first pregnancy, I gained about 50 pounds. So you start seeing those numbers, and you're panicking. That scale is so high. And at first, going through that fitness journey, all you want to do is see that scale drop. However, scales are extremely misleading. The better option and more mentally gratifying option is to take pictures and measurements. My clients and myself, we take pictures from the front, back, and the side, and we take measurements and we track those, because there was one in particular challenge that I did for myself. It was an 8-week challenge. My scale stayed exactly the same, but I lost 2.5 inches off my weight. Muscle weighs more.
Yes.
And I like my figure more now. I have an hourglass shape that I really didn't have before. My skin looks tighter. A lot of my cellulite is gone. That's all from strength training. But did I have to get used to seeing that number go up because muscle weighs more? Yeah. But I think I look 10 times fitter. My waist is the same exact size. My waist is just tiny. I didn't have to sacrifice my inch size, my waist, in order to get that toned look and that physique, which a lot of women think they're automatically going to bulk up. They're going to need bigger clothes. But don't get me wrong, some of my clothes fit me tighter, but in the right places. It's fine. We do it for the sacrifice. But the scale is just so misleading, and it can really bring somebody down when they don't see it move. But you might have lost 5 pounds of body fat and gained 3 pounds of lean muscle, which increases your metabolism and allows you to eat more food to begin with. So I think a lot of women, especially, have to get used to not relying on that scale as their form of progress.
And I think that higher metabolism, I mean, in the end, don't we all just want to eat as much food as we can and still stay in that range? I mean,
ideally,
that's what I'm going for too. And you're right about the I've had a few women talk to me when I tell them to start lifting weights and heavier weights, and their immediate thought is, I don't want to get too bulky. And
Yep.
I wish that was the case with me. As soon as I picked up weights, I'd get enormous, and it's just that's not the way it works.
Yeah. No, I wish it was the way it works. I mean, shoot, my bulking season would be a lot easier.
Yes, it definitely would. It
It's a
definitely would.
second-time job to eat that much food in order to gain that muscle mass.
Especially the protein sometimes,
Oh.
right? The protein can be brutal sometimes, I feel like.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. I'm definitely getting used to that. However, it's never easy.
What's your protein intake like? Because we usually tell
So-
people about a gram per body weight. Is that around where you are?
So generally, I tell my clients 1 gram per 1 pound of goal body weight. Essentially, what
Yes.
your ideal body weight would be. Eat your body weight in protein. However, it does depend for me. It does depend on the phases of where I'm at within my training. There are certain phases where I can get up to 200 grams of protein a day.
Wow.
And
That's
I
not
weigh,
easy.
yeah, usually my bulking season, I've noticed that my happy muscle mass range for my height, I am 5'7", so I'm taller. It's typically low 140s. It's kind of where I like my physique.
Yeah.
But when I'm prepping, when I get to show week, I can go down to low 120.
Yes.
So it definitely depends on where I'm at within that scale. But it can get as high as 200. I know you hear my son screaming.
Oh, they're normal boys and
We're
girls.
both
That's the way
parents.
it
We
is.
get it. Trust me.
Oh, it's good.
At least he said thank you.
I did.
yeah.
At least I've taught manners.
Yeah. As a teacher, I can tell you, there was one year I started off, and the kids, my room is the first in the hallway, and they would be walking by, and I would say good morning to everybody, and maybe 10% would say good morning back or any sort of response. So I started handing out stickers to every kid that responded, and then in a day, everybody was saying good, but it carried over, and then
It does.
as it does. They
like
started
that.
calling me Mr. Stickers, so I don't know how cool that nickname is, but
It's okay.
it
It
worked.
could be worse.
It
I'm
could
going to
be.
start calling you Mr. Stickers.
Yo, thanks.
now.
I
That is your
appreciate that.
nickname.
I get the Mr. Clean on occasion, which I did. That one's not too original. I don't know. Sorry, I got a couple others here. I saw a lot of your posts and the messages. I'm like, oh, that's what we say. That's what we think. So it resonated perfectly. But you had something where you said there's no perfect time to take action. You stop coming up with excuses for yourself and just get going.
One of the biggest things, and don't get me wrong, I make excuses sometimes too, but it's better to look at them as obstacles, not excuses. So the number one thing is I don't have time. I don't have time.
Yes.
I'm too busy. I don't have time. Well, if you want it bad enough, we make the time. If you're craving a certain food, people will go out and get it. If you're wanting a certain item for your house, you will go drive and you will go get it.
Yeah.
There's certain things that you do because you want that. Well, if you truly want a certain figure, you can make the time for it. I get up at 3:30 in the morning. Do I want to get up at 3:30 in the morning? Absolutely not. I am not a morning person. I don't want to start at 5 a.m. However, with clients, my own schedule, the second I get home and the kids are out of school, we are in the car. My daughter's a competitive dancer. They don't get home till after 9 o'clock. So just the time doesn't exist. Okay,
Yeah.
well, make it. I get out of bed sooner. That's what I have to do. And especially when it comes to prep, which is a whole nother world when you're talking bikini competitions and fitness competitors, but just general life aspect when people are trying to get to a certain goal, you can make the time to weasel an hour here and there. Not even if you can get a 30-minute walk in your day, increase your steps. You can do that, and you can get to your goal. But time is probably the biggest excuse that people give. The other one would maybe be a monetary value, but there are at-home options. There are things that you can do that don't cost anything. Do you have to get a personal trainer? No, you don't. Are we a very useful tool? Absolutely. But there are certain things that you can do. I mean, most people, you can immediately start losing weight by doing 3 things, and that's increasing your daily step count, watching your nutrition, making sure you're in a calorie deficit, and increasing your water intake.
There you go.
it literally is a lot of what we say, right? And the biggest thing that we've said over the last 10 episodes or however many we're in here is if you don't make I said 10. I said 10.
I got that. I was confirming. I had your back, buddy.
But yeah, so if you don't make that time for your wellness, you're gonna have to make time for your illness at some point, right? And
Absolutely.
you're gonna be forced to make that time, or you're gonna be forced to spend that money somewhere else. It doesn't matter. So you have to prioritize it, or you're gonna have to spend it anyways, or you're gonna have to do it anyways.
Absolutely. And I still think those medical bills are far more expensive than
They
the
really are. Yes, it definitely is. And plus, once you get to that point, you can't do the things you want to do anyway. So it's not just the money and the time you got to put in. You're limited now with, spending time with your kids or doing the hobbies that you like to do, or just getting up and walking around the house, depending on what happened to you.
Yeah.
Choose your heart, right? Choose your heart.
Yeah, exactly. And monkey see, monkey do. Your kids will grow up watching you strive for what you want, and they're going to do it too. My daughter, during the pandemic, we were stuck at home. We were working outside in the garage a lot. She would look at us on the days that we didn't, and she turned to us and be like, are we going to work out today? Like, are we going to work out? She's like,
Ma, let's go.
Like,
Come on, Ma.
Yeah. Well, I guess how can I say no now?
You can't. You can't. Your kid's calling you out. You got to do it. You got to.
Exactly. So you're setting good examples for them, both for their health, but also just to see that it's not easy and you have to strive to do certain things to get to your goals, and they'll see that will rub over on them.
Yeah, definitely. There's another thing you said in this. I don't know if it was last episode or the episode before, but this kind of gets to me a little bit when people tell you, "Oh, you've got great genetics," or "Oh, you're so lucky," I think you got a med thing on there too, and it's like, yeah, I'm sure you get that, and you want to be like, all right, I'm going to call you when I wake up at 3:30 in the morning, and you can come do what I'm doing, or eat what I'm eating.
Yeah, I get that all the time. It's one of three things. I get told that it's genetics, I get told that I'm lucky, or I get told that I'm taking performance enhancement drugs. It's one of the three. And yes, I understand that certain people have rougher pregnancies. Obviously, I didn't have any C-sections. C-sections is a whole nother battle. Don't get me wrong. To each their own journey. However, and yes, genetics absolutely play a part in how you get to the goal, but they don't determine your goal, like your final outcome. You can have good genetics and let your body go to weight. You can have awful genetics and you can fight through it. And it might take you a little long. You might have to take a different path. You can absolutely get to your goal. It's not the excuse people lead it to be because they can't reach their goal. That's the number one problem there, is that genetics is becoming an excuse. I can't do that because these are my genetics. No. Is it an obstacle? Yeah. We might have to do a completely different routine or nutrition program than that person who's built to respond well to it, but you can get there too. Most people automatically assume it's easy for me, but my biggest issue typically is because I'm so busy, I'm on my feet constantly, obviously at work with the kids. I'm very physical in general, but regardless of the workouts themselves too, it's harder for me to keep my shape on than it is to take it off. Some people, it's really easy for them to lose weight. Some people, it's really easy for them to put on muscle mass. I have a very hard time putting that muscle mass on and keeping it on. I have to make my routine, my food, a second job in order to keep my physique the way that it is. So it's not easy, and it's really working against my genetics because my body doesn't want that muscle.
Yeah.
But I want that physique. I want that figure. I have to keep up with it or it will go away. And a lot of people automatically just jump to the conclusion that they can't achieve it because of genetics, which is just very, very, very false.
Mindset. It comes down to mindset, right? And that's a very fixed mindset mentality. And that's a huge thing right there.
All right. Well, that brings our show. This version, we'll have part 2 coming up in a couple months. But Sam, So happy to have you on here. This was, I think people are going to get a lot out of this one. So I really, really appreciate you taking the time to talk to everybody.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Thanks for having me.
This was great. We really appreciate it. It was awesome.
Thank you. I appreciate it too. Thank you so much.
All right. Bye, Sam.
Bye. Have a good one.
Take care.
That brings another episode of the Health Movement Podcast to an end. And as always, we appreciate you all taking the time to listen. If you have any questions, head over to the website, healthmovement.us. You can ask us questions. If you need help with coaching or anything like that, there's a coaching tab where you can submit questions there as well. So please don't hesitate to reach out, and we look forward to talking to you in the next episode.